We're going to proceed, please. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
So we're going to have a roll call.
Mr. Urbini?
Here.
Present.
Present.
Mr. Kent?
Here.
Mr. Roach?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Chairman Lyons?
Here.
Let the record show that the town manager is also present. The town attorney will not be here today. I have spoken to him on the phone this morning. I guess that's it.
Okay. Any ex parte discussions?
No. That subject is, have you spoken to any of the applicants regarding this, or any other third party?
I have not had any ex parte discussions.
So on minutes of the regular meeting, can I have a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March 26th.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Urbini? Motions, aye.
Aye.
I,
Mr. Kent?
Aye.
Mr. Roach?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Chairman Lyons?
Aye. Any additions, withdrawals, deferrals, arrangements, and agenda items?
I have none.
I have none.
I have none.
Okay. I appreciate it, everyone would alert readers sooner rather than later if you're not going to be able to attend any of the subsequent meetings noted in Roman numeral 5. Okay, should we swear people in and we're going to address the meeting?
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we'll all start with the application regarding Mr. and Mrs. William J. Martin Jr.
Good morning, I'm Bill Wheatson, I'm the architect and the agent for the owner. Let's see.
Can he speak from over there, you know? Can he be heard from the computer? Or does he have to speak from the lecture?
You can take the mic out.
Nice.
Just don't body surf for the audience.
He's broken.
We are proposing to build a new residence on a lot at the end of Hidden Harbor Drive, a lot that's never been built on, we don't think. We can't find any record of anything ever being built on this lot. One of the few lots in the city that hasn't had it built on it. It is a lot of about 35,000 square feet, however, about 10,000 square feet of that's submerged or part of the cul-de-sac. The effective lot area is a little over 25,000 square feet. The house that we are proposing to build is a two-story house, although the second floors are actually very small, and is juxtaposed slightly on the lot as to when you walk in the door, you face a conservation area on the other side of the intercoastal. We looked at different ways of orienting the house. If we oriented directly to the north, we looked at the side of the house across the canal, which wasn't very attractive, and we did it on a true 45-degree, like a lot of point lots are done, and looked directly at the, I don't know the name of the condominium project, townhouse project across the way, which wasn't the view we were looking for when we approached the house. So it seemed to make sense to orient it towards the intercoastal this way. You approach the house, enter the house by vehicle through a gate, and you can see that you go up to a roundabout, and then that roundabout leads to an auto court with a two-car garage, in which the garage doors are not seen from the street on the left, and a single-car garage on the right. The setbacks all adhere to your requirements. The house is 100% compliant with your requirements. There we go. That's the size of the second floor, you can see. The second floor is actually set back approximately 80 feet from the neighbor to the east. So the orientation of this house is really away from the neighbors, and it's to the intercoastal. Simple hip roofs, white tile roofs, all the pieces you people like. Right. adheres to all your height requirements, and all your requirements for your chimneys and what have you.
Bill, may I ask you a question, just to be sure I have the orientation
Sure.
of the home correct? The front of the house is looking east, is that correct?
It's looking east, yes.
Okay.
You can see it here. You know, it's looking east-southeast, basically. You know, you can see the property line to the east is slightly, is not parallel with the front of the house. But it's also oriented, you know, it's situated, it's sited where it's as far away as you can get from the house to the east.
And the house to the east is for sale, I think, right?
It is. It is.
So we don't know that, the house might be taken down, who knows? Okay, thank you.
No comment. And there's the rendering of the house. The aesthetics of the house are such that we wanted to do a true Anglo-Caribbean style house. We wanted to, we feel the area, I feel the area of Hidden Harbor has been neglected by development for a long time. The last good house to be built there was Chris Wheeler's house back 15 years ago. A lot of the other houses should and could and hopefully will come down at some point and be replaced. And I think this is a good anchor for development, for future development down there. As far as the style goes, I think we're bringing the rest of Gulfstream down there. There are no other houses of this style down in that direct area. I mean, the development to the east has some Anglo-Caribbean style houses, but I don't think there are any down there at all. Our landscaping plan, I don't have my landscape architect here, so I really can't go into exactly what the plan list is, but it's in your package. We have a specimen tree that's going to be, we use a lot of native trees, a lot of gumbo limbo trees. We'll have a specimen gumbo limbo in the middle of that roundabout. We have a series of gumbo limbos and other things going along the east property line. We want to screen the house to the east as much as we can for ourselves and for them. And I think I've got a drawing here. That's what the view of the house is going to be like from the neighbor. You know, you can get an idea of the amount of foliage, and we're actually putting some very mature trees in. We don't, when the house is finished, we really don't want to see the house to the east. That is the view from the house, the east, looking back to our house.
Bill, what is that? It looks like a wall. What is?
That's a fence. There's an existing fence that's there.
Whose fence is that?
I believe it belongs to the house to the east.
Okay.
It's just that industrial fencing.
Yeah, actually, I went down this morning, now I
It's,
recognize it.
so we really want to hide that, get that,
Yes.
create a fold, as much fold as we can. We want to create, Mr. Martin wants to create his own little world in there, so. We actually have should we discuss this here, or is this just for the commission? We're talking about the property to the sanctuary to the.
Right, you can talk.
Yeah. We're proposing and asking for permission to, there's a bird sanctuary to the south of this property. Now, unfortunately, that bird sanctuary has been infiltrated with a lot of invasive plants. So we, a lot of, what they call Brazilian acorns or Brazilian peppers and all kinds of horrible trees. So we want to take the property to the east, and then the first 30 feet, which is designated by that dotted line down below, we want to remove, with the permission of the town, we want to get permission to remove all the invasive plants and replace invasive trees, replace them with gumbo limbos and other natural trees in that area. We don't want to look at it. It's been kind of a neglected property, and it's a prime piece of property. I mean, it'd be nice if we could get some kind of impetus going, some kind of private funding going to get that property, get all the invasive trees taken out of it and new ones put in. And we're creating a path for access for the town to get down to the intercoastal, which will be just covered in mulch. But, is there anything I'm missing there on that?
No.
No.
Who owns that property?
Town?
The town
Town
does.
owns that?
The town does.
It was gifted, was it not?
Yes,
Yeah. I mean, it could be it's a
there's
resource.
certain restrictions on it.
Pretty strict restrictions.
Yeah. It's kind of a neglected asset, I feel, part of the town. But, you know, it'd be nice if you get some kind of private funding together to maybe take care of it a little better. But that's just my opinion. And that's just the drainage plan.
I'll remember to give you a call.
And I think that's the end of my presentation.
Now you mentioned that everything's in compliance, but as you probably know, we've had some not issues. We've had to consider the front entrance to a number of houses. Can I just confirm that the front entrance is fully compliant in terms of height and the pillars?
It is, in my opinion, based on the other elements being proposed.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure for the record.
Anything else?
Have you had any feedback from the neighbor to your east?
We've had, the only feedback we've had is, was that Mrs. Neves across the canal called me to tell me how much she loved it, and I think she called the town and gave us.
She did.
The neighbor to the east, we have not heard from.
Yeah, I think this is exactly, I mean, your design is exactly in keeping with the design manual, and the intent of the design manual, the guidelines of the design manual is completely in compliance, and I think this is what we want in the town. We have, you know, look, I mean, as Bill said, 80 feet from the property next door before you hit the second story structure. The second story is well set back on both sides from the, with the, I mean, it follows right in the language of the design manual. I can't think of a nicer project to put down there.
And also I find appealing, the square footage on the second floor is a very small percentage of the total.
The owner really wanted a one-bedroom house downstairs at him and his wife, but usually have 4 kids, and the 4 kids, when they come,
They can
they're
go
upstairs.
upstairs. Yeah.
With the sound barrier.
Concrete floors.
Should read it. Are we ready for a motion?
Do you have any questions?
Well, I was unclear, where the special exception space is, the 297.57.
I didn't bring that up. There's in the design manual, there's an incentive to create more covered outdoor space that's not enclosed.
Right.
And so by providing a minimum of 600 square feet, you can increase that to 900 square feet with a special exception. And it's just one of those things that most of us try to use as much as we can, because we like to have large lanais and large covered areas outside. But it's an incentive to create more covered outdoor spaces.
And I understand the incentive aspect, I just, it wasn't clear to me where on, could you point to me
It's
where on the
sure,
drawing it is?
sure. Well, you can see the, mostly on the first floor. I wish I had a pointer here, but I don't.
The pointer won't work anyway.
Bill, you can move the mouse around, the one that's not the upside down.
Yeah, you
That
could
way.
do that.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay, good. There's a summer kitchen right here that's completely roofed in. That's part of the outdoor space. And there's this loggia that is in the center part of the house that is part of that space. And then, of course, the entrance is part of the outdoor unenclosed space. And then on the second floor, we have this small belvedere in this area right here. So all that adds up to, I don't know what it adds up to. It's more, it's in excess of the 900 square feet, but the rest of it's within the FAR requirements.
When I was looking over the drawing, I was trying to find a space that was 299.57.
It's cumulative to all the outdoor spaces together.
And that's why I couldn't find it.
Right.
Is there a provision that requires that those unenclosed spaces remain unenclosed?
There's a deed restriction that we're going to have to sign that requires that to stay forever unenclosed, if my memory is
That's
correct.
generally the practice.
Yeah.
Correct, Rita?
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Question.
Well, just that the deed restriction is not mentioned on the motion to recommend approval with the 4 subject twos on the back. I don't know what the procedure is for,
We could add that as an additional condition at this point in the review.
We can do that, sure.
it's not.
Is that how you normally do it?
Yes.
Very good.
Good call.
You're a good student.
I have done this before, but mostly commercial, so. This is a very creative layout. I
Thank you.
enjoy looking at it. I'll enjoy seeing it more.
It's nice you appreciate it. That's-
Yeah.
Anything else? Motion, please?
So I'll make a motion to approve the land clearing permit to permit the property for the construction of the structure. That's all we need.
Second.
Mr. Rubini? Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Kent?
Aye.
Mr. Roach?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Chairman Lyons?
And secondly, a motion to recommend approval of a special exception permitted 299.57 square feet of covered unenclosed area that exceeds the maximum permitted floor area.
Second.
Mr. Rubini?
Aye.
Mr. Kent?
Aye.
Mr. Roach?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Chairman Lyons?
Aye.
Thirdly, a motion to recommend approval of the level 3 architectural site plan based on the finding that the proposed building meets all of the applicable standards for design manual. Does it have to be verbatim here?
But we need to get the conditions, make sure that the applicant is in agreement with it, or the applicant's agent.
It's on the back
On the
side
back.
of the page.
On the back.
Trying to
Oh,
save
okay,
money.
oh, got it, okay. Good. One, any minor modifications in the landscape plan shall be submitted to the town manager for review and approval, and all major modifications shall be brought back to the ARPB for review and approval prior to commencement of landscaping. Number 2, wall and or fences along the property, wall and or fences along the side property lines will be measured from the lowest abutting grade with a maximum height of 8 feet, including any lighting fixtures that may be attached. 3, all chain link fencing will be screened from the neighbor's view. 4, construction of docks, installation of boat lifts, and ancillary structures shall conform to Gulfstream Code 66-369 docks.
Plus,
Do you want the condition?
Oh, we can put that in there, okay, and then
Special
number
exception.
5, we're gonna add, that the applicant signs a deed restriction, that the unenclosed square footage will forever remain unenclosed.
I'll second that.
Aye.
Mr. Murphy seconded it. You voted aye.
Aye.
Mr. Kent? Mr. Roach?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy? Chairman Lyons?
Yes, aye.
Aye.
Looks like a done deal.
not yet.
Here, anyway.
Here.
Step 1.
Sure. Not gonna have any.
Bill, thank you, that's a wonderful house.
Thank you.
Uh, We have an agenda item, Bill, that I'd like to get your input on.
I was gonna stick around for whatever this junk.
Oh, good, thank you, I appreciate that.
If someone will tell me the proper way to take this junk drive out.
I'm not sure, but I
There you
think.
go.
Do I just pull it out?
No,
Just at the upper right hand corner, hit the X button, and then you can pull it out.
I have
I
an
got it.
additional question. I just,
Hit escape first, escape.
where's the
There
undergrounding?
you go.
What's the status of the undergrounding down there? Is that?
I think there's already underground on there.
Maybe it's switched the wrong one. There we go. Thanks. You wanna keep it?
Yeah, well,
You can have it.
Yeah, oh, boy.
For the, yeah,
keep for.
Sometimes I would go.
well, for the commission.
Yeah, so you guys will make sure you have the commission meeting.
We'll do that. We'll put it in the safe.
Thank you.
Blue sky.
realize it.
Good morning, my name is Tyler Nielsen, and I'm the landscape architect and agent for the owners of 530 Middle Road. And I'm here to present the revised site and landscape plan for the residents. Originally, the architect was contracted for the site and landscape plan, and we were brought in mid-project to help with the landscaping and the site plan. The original landscape plan consisted of a lawn and ficus hedge surrounding the property, and then a few crepe myrtle trees to ornament the entryway of the property. The owners of the property, upon kind of familiarizing themselves with South Florida, and they had heard of the whitefly issue with the ficus hedges, decided that they wanted to go in a different direction with the landscape plan. So we were brought in to assist with this project. So the landscape plan that we are proposing for the site consists of a healthy balance between native species and non-native species to act as color and ornamental accents throughout the composition of the garden. The landscape plan consists of, on the perimeter of the property, a native crabwood hedge. The crabwood is a native tree to South Florida that grows in a columnar form. It doesn't require the amount of trimming and maintenance that a ficus hedge does to maintain its kind of erect, linear form due to its slow growth and its native proposition of wanting to be a smaller tree. It grows commonly found in the Florida Keys as growing underneath like the hammock of the gumbo limbo trees and the mahoganies. So on the surrounding property lines, we have a hedge of this crabwood, and then we have a few interspersed sable palm trees to get scale that is at a higher level on the property line, so that there's a nice rhythm on the edges of the property, and the height of the sable palms conceal the adjacent two residences. The residence on the west side is a two-story home that we've used the existing royal palms and sable palms to conceal the upper levels looking into the property. And then on the east side of the property, we've used the sable palms to hide the eave of the roof of the existing home. Through the rear garden along the intercoastal way, we're proposing using native sea grape and Bahama coffee to provide kind of the lower level understory plantings for the garden, and then intermixing agave as a sculptural plant with some specimen reclinata palms to give some really nice textural features to the garden as the owners utilize their pool and outdoor terrace space. The front garden area, we've proposed to keep the existing date palm tree and the large existing black olive tree, but have proposed on either end using gumbo limbos to manage the scale of the architecture with the area of the site, but then use mass trees to kind of create this formal architecture to the garden that complements the facade of the architecture. And then to really highlight the entranceway for the garden, we are proposing 4 bridal veil trees. Right here, the bridal veil trees are not native to Florida, they're native to Brazil. But they're in some ways similar to a crepe myrtle tree, that they have a very lacy texture to the canopy of the tree, so that the architecture, unfortunately this elevation is not too good at showing this, but the bridal veil tree, you can really see through the canopy of the tree. So we're not hiding the architecture and the decorative columns of the entranceway, but complementing it in more or less reinforcing this main access of the home. Looking at our site plan, the architect had designed this strong axis that runs through the interior and exterior of the home and actually bisects the pool. So we've proposed that we continue that axis from the front door to the right-of-way. The stone for that walkway would be a travertine. It would be a hammered finish for the exterior. The interior is a honed finish. Then the surrounding driveway, walkways, and pool terraces, we're proposing on using a Dominican coral stone that matches the color and tone of the travertine, that has more textured appearance with the coral and the kind of just cut finish that you get with the Dominican coral stone. The proposed site plan is consistent with the town of Gulfstream's parameters of maintaining 40% of landscape space. From the original architect's plan, we've increased the hardscape area by 300 square feet. And that 300 square feet would be over on the east property line. This is the master wing of the residence, and the owner loves being in her garden, and she wanted to have a garden seating area that she can look out, see glimpses of the intercoastal way, but still be in the privacy of her wing when she has guests staying with her. This is the elevation, this is the rendering. So these are the proposed plants that we're wanting to use. The Simpson stopper is a native. The gumbo limbo, this image of the bridal veil trees right here in the center would be the 4 trees leading up to the main entranceway. These are the mass trees providing kind of the repetition to the garden composition in the front facade. These trees down on the bottom are kind of native understory trees that we're using to kind of create a smaller scale within this space, and we have our sea grape. We have the proposed accent palms, and these would be the shrubs and accents used throughout the garden space, and ground covers that we're proposing.
Can you go back to the tall, conical tree?
Yes.
That's all the way in the top and the right?
Yes, that's the right hand. Yeah, so the mass trees, they're fantastic trees. I love using them. Often here, Palm Beach, we get clients who ask for something reminiscent of like you'd see in Italy, of a cypress tree standing nice and tall. And I have a hard time specifying the mass tree here in South Florida just because or excuse me, I have a hard time specifying the cypress tree, just because they're not tropical. This mass tree it is a tropical tree. It's native to India, but to provide that upright soldier form that people love for a very formal garden, I think it accomplishes it in a very beautiful manner that has a leaf form and a canopy that's more conducive to kind of the subtropical
So
environment.
it's a
that we
leaf
face.
versus an evergreen?
It is a leaf. It does not drop its leaves, but it isn't,
And it has a leaf year-round?
it does have a leaf year-round. It does. The leaves, they grow, they're long and slender, and they grow about 6 inches long. And they're really, really beautiful.
And tell me about the trees that are going to introduce you to the house in the front. The ones that.
The Brazilian.
Yes, so as illustrated in this elevation and right here on the plan, they're called Brideville trees. They're slow-growing, smaller trees. So the image that you see there are very mature trees. Those trees, yes.
Third,
Second to the.
third on the
Yeah,
top,
on
that's
top,
third
okay.
from the right.
All right,
Yeah.
all right.
So these trees right here, these are very mature trees. The age of those trees, I would have to guess, would be somewhere between 60, 70 years old. So they're very slow growing. What we're specifying for the home right now is that it be installed at being about 12 to 14 feet tall total. But we're limbing up the canopy so that as you walk into the home, you're not being disturbed by branches kind of growing in the pedestrian corridor. But they're one of my favorite trees. They're very sculptural. They're very, in their appearance, they're very delicate, but it's related to the ironwood, so they're a very hard tree. So they weather very well. They don't drop limbs during high wind events. But then the canopy is very, very lazy. Really, really small tree. Similar to like maybe a honey locust tree. Just very delicate, small leaves. And this was, I spent a lot of time with the client. She was very concerned that we not hide the front facade of her home. She loved the architectural columns that the architect had proposed. And so she wanted to maintain that view to the front of her house. And so we went and looked at many different trees, and she fell in love with this tree because of that lacy texture that allows you to see into the front of her new home.
The picture you have on your slide, the tree doesn't look very full. It just, I assume it's going to be much fuller than the one we're looking at.
No.
It has that.
Yeah.
See right through
so,
it.
yeah, you can see through now this is looking up into, this image is looking up kind of into the canopy, showing the structural beauty of the branching, but it is very transparent. Like the leaves are very delicate as far as their size. So as opposed to this gumbo limbo that you see on to the left of it, where when the gumbo limbo's canopy
I know why I'm confused. I was looking at the wrong picture.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's, now I understand. I apologize. I was confused as to which one was, okay.
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's not your.
But these trees are going to be about 12 feet
12 to 14 feet installed, and so
installed. How tall is the front door of the house?
the,
Do you have any
It's
idea?
like 10 feet.
yeah, 8 feet.
So it's going to take a long time for these trees to grow up above that roof line, right?
Oh, yes, a very long time. So kind of as you've seen here, if I were to take like a magic marker or a Sharpie, the canopy of the tree is going to appear
They're
like this
more
when
like a
installed.
dwarf, like a dwarf tree at this point for the next 10, 15 years.
Yes, if you were to go around and see a crepe myrtle tree, it would be in similar size to the size of a crepe myrtle tree as installed now, and that, you know, we're talking 10, 15 years, it would then appear to the size as drawn in this elevation. Yes.
Just on the shrubs, as a matter of just personal interest,
Yes.
the silver buttonwood, how high is it grown? Because it looks very similar to the lady palm in terms of its...
The silver buttonwood will grow to probably, if you allow it to get into a tree form, you know, somewhere between 20 and 24 feet tall. You know, you can see it used, I've seen it in a Publix parking lot, used as a hedge, where they keep it at 3 feet tall. But that's just with weekly maintenance. We're planning on using it as more of an understory tree where we'll let it, you know, develop, you know, a really interesting branching structure that keep it more in like the 12 to 14 foot height range.
Right, because it's in the category of shrubs.
Yes, yes.
And, it's quite a shrub, it's 12 to 14 feet.
So, yeah. So generally in our process of design, anything over that 12 to 14 we consider as trees and palms, and then anything underneath that is an understory tree or shrub. Oh, I'm sorry, were you speaking
No,
of
the silver buttonwood.
the silver buttonwood or the silver palmetto?
Silver buttonwood.
The silver palmetto, yes, okay, then yes, as I was speaking, that is true.
We didn't see the previous landscape plan, but, I mean, you know, I don't know if anybody has any comments about the new one, but I just never saw, we never saw the old
Well,
one.
it's my understanding, and I'm sure I am not remembering correctly or completely, it has been a couple of years, that the architect the architect and agents convinced staff at the time that there was really not going to be any change to the landscape.
Oh, in other words, what was there was gonna stay.
So what was there, because this was
More of a
primarily just a remodeling of the existing structure. So as time went on, and most recently, it was observed the material addition of landscape and a change to some of the hardware in the front caused me to ask that the owner bring this back to, or bring it to the ARPB as an item previously heard, because they wanted to move into their house and we were trying to cooperate. So
Is this level 2 or level 3?
this was a
I mean, this is what we're doing right now, is level 2.
yeah, no, this is what we normally do, is bring back any change to the ARPB for approval. It's something that I did not feel I had the authority, so I can easily bring it back to the ARPB. I mean, I can, by code, bring it back to the ARPB, and our history has been that any material change has.
No, this is a material change. I mean,
Yes.
I didn't see the original one, if it was supposed to be the original landscape.
There was
this is
none.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, I
this
guess
is
that's the easiest thing I could have said, there was none, or the quickest.
Terrific.
And
Thank you, Bill.
what percentage are non-endemic trees, the non-endemic trees or bushes that are going in? You know, you have some local
Yes.
vegetation that's going in, but what percentage is non-local?
Honestly, to give you a number, I don't know that exact calculation off the top of my
I
head.
mean, even a
but
rough, I mean,
rough
is it
number,
20% or 50%?
I would say that 70% of the plants that we are installing are all native to South Florida. And I'm really excited about this landscape project. worked with many different clients trying to convince them to use a crabwood hedge instead of a ficus hedge. That when most see the cost to do a crabwood hedge because they're hard to find trees, they opt not to. But this client has chosen to go in this area. So just the quantity of crabwood trees being installed on this property, I'm really, really excited about, because it is a very hard to find plant in South Florida, and has unfortunately just been ravaged. Finding it in a native plant preserve or in the Everglades or in the Keys, there are very limited quantities now. And so we're installing over 60 crabwood trees on the property. We've installed over 6 gumbo limbos. We'll be installing over 15 sable palms. So it's a very healthy percentage of native to non-native.
What have they been ravaged by? Insects or?
No, they've been ravaged by development.
Oh.
Yeah. So, in Miami, there's one last native stand of crabwood trees that is in Simpson Stopper Park. It's like right downtown, which is really fascinating that it's like in almost like the hornet's nest. But yeah, unfortunately, because of the removal of the native hammock down in especially Dade County, they are just a very scarce tree.
So when you're looking at the property, looking at the property from the street, currently now there's some pavers that they put in, correct, that goes straight to the front door? I don't know what you call it, but,
That is correct.
It's actually
Yes.
not quite reflected correctly in the
Yes.
plan, because they're more like huge poured
Well,
concrete
that's-
blocks
yeah,
with,
that's what I'm getting at.
Yes.
It looks like with some of the lower planning, you're not gonna see a lot of those pavers, only probably from the street, you only see the ones taking you into the house. Is that
Well,
correct?
so when we
Follow my
had
question.
previously,
yeah, I guess what he said, I think what we're trying to get to is that those large pavers that were put in, is the planting on the street side of those going to,
Disguise and
just,
hide.
are they gonna be hidden, or how high is the planting along the front?
this planting, it's low. It's low.
That's low.
It's like, okay.
It's low. So we're talking about 6 to 8 inches tall, with a few sculptural agaves to give it a little bit of height, but it is low. And then leading up to the front entranceway between the pavers, we're going to use a dwarf mondo grass between the joints of each of the stone. So it breaks up the scale of the hardscape and reads more garden-esque instead of sidewalk.
And that's the impact, that's the end result. You've done this before, obviously, but that's
Oh,
what
yes,
it
yes.
does, because right now, it looks like a lot of hardscape.
Yes.
Of course, there's no green in it now.
There is no green there, but, and this is actually, the drawing illustrates like the Dominican coral stone in a 2x2 stone pattern. And what we've done to break up the scale of the stone is we're doing 4x8 pads with a 4-inch joint in between each of these pads that will be planted to further break up the scale of the hardscape. To bring it,
That's poured cement, right, or I don't know what that is.
yes,
poured
it's
cement
poured,
with
it's
that
poured
material on
cement
top.
with the Dominican coral stone veneer on
Oh,
top.
got it now, got it,
Yes.
thank you.
Are they 4x8 or 4x4?
The
Not those, it's 4 feet,
they're
how big are
four,
they?
they're
Square?
4x8.
They're 4 feet by 8 feet?
They're 4 feet by 8 feet.
Yeah, they're so big.
That's seriously big pieces.
Well, the stone is 2x2, and then the pads are 4x8.
and the pad is underneath the
Yeah,
stone.
you don't
That is
see
true.
it.
You will not see the concrete. You will just see the finished stone,
Which is, the size of the finished stone is?
2 by 2. So we're
Okay,
working with
that-
dimensions
that.
of 2, 4, and 8.
Okay.
Wait, and that's not reflected in
No.
the, that's.
No.
Yeah, so if I were to take a Sharpie, you'd see planted joints.
Every, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's nice having.
What's the distance again?
It is 4 inches.
Okay.
So when they form it, it's, but it won't be, anything wider than that we found is an ankle breaker.
Right.
So.
And also where you see the, where the, on the rear of the property, where you see that hemisphere, between the pool, that's actually covered, you don't actually see, that's all covered over. Except that, is there a break down the middle?
There is a break. The architect did a very beautiful job of, this is all covered, but there is a glass, more covering, or awning that goes right down the middle, mimicking the stone beneath it, to kind of reinforce that access.
Is that walkway over the pool, or are there?
The walkway is over the pool, so it bisects the pool. So, you know, as you come into the residence and look down this access, literally this band of stone carries all the way through the property.
It's on an arch or something that's over the pool?
They're stepped pavers, so it's almost like just a bridge across the water.
Is it a bridge or is it supported from the bottom of the pool?
It is supported from the bottom of the pool. It is supported from the bottom.
I will say it's very different.
It is. It is very different to see the pool bisected and have kind of 2 bodies of water.
Tell me, on the east and west, the hedge you're putting in, how tall would most of that vegetation be when you install it initially?
So,
Because you said it grows slowly.
yeah, it grows slowly. So this is where the price comes in. We're installing it from 6 to 8 feet tall. So it's going to provide immediate privacy when installed. And then it will mature, and the maintenance plan is to keep it, you know, probably about 12 feet tall.
Peter, were the neighbors to, well, the east and the west, we have the east represented to my left, but the people to the,
And the Hansons are on the west.
yeah, are they aware of all this?
Well, of course, we don't send notices for
Yeah.
something that's brought back. Mrs. Hanson was in here the other day. She didn't mention any concern about the looks of what was going on, but she was very concerned about the length of the project and all of the activity going on here all at once.
And what's the answer to that?
What's the answer to that? Honestly, I was concerned about the length of the project too, because we were brought in with the intent to have this landscape done before Christmas. And here we are, almost June. So as things stand right now, the contractor has informed me that we should be able to, the landscaping, should be able to come in and start the middle of next week, and then it would be about a week installation to complete the landscape. So I would love to go speak to this neighbor and say that in a week and a half, 2 weeks, the project would be done. Part of the reason why we can't is once the sod and everything is brought in, the site would no longer have parking for any of the other subcontractors. And so we've been pushed off until all the other subcontractors have completed their scope of work.
Procedurally, does this have to go before the commission?
No,
No, it's just business.
you're the final.
Well, this is, 80% of this, I mean, I'm just throwing out a rough number, but just from what I've seen, 80% of this stuff is in, it's done. I mean, it's basically a complete project. I mean, obviously the saw has to go and things like that, but the hedges are already in, and all the palm trees are in, those plants out in front. Maybe not are the tall?
The mast trees were installed
There.
last week. We have, I think, 2 more to install, but yes.
I think it should be known that they wanted to go ahead and do this project before this board saw it, but they signed an affidavit that if we would let them go ahead and anything that you didn't like would be removed or replaced at their expense.
They just want to get it done.
Yes.
That's good for everybody.
That's
Yeah.
I think it's, I mean, it's not exactly what you find in Gulfstream, but I think what really is nice about the front, and the greenery hasn't gone in yet, but there's very little hardscape in the front, with the exception of the 2-car wide driveway going up. The amount of hardscape compared to other properties is fairly low, and I think it's a really nice, it's different than it's typically found in the neighborhood, but at the same time, there's so much greenery that I think it fits in nicely with what we have in town.
Yeah, having walked in the neighborhoods with the owner and seeing what she likes, echoing what you said, I believe that once this is done, the neighbors are going to be really appreciative of the amount of planting that we're installing, and that it's going to be a very soft and green landscape.
Any other comments or questions?
Question,
Yeah, please.
if you're finished.
Yeah.
Could you verify for me that all planning and proposed hardscape will be located only on private property?
Except for the driveway apron
Okay,
and the walkway between the property line and the edge of asphalt.
thank you. I'm not sure I have the names of the trees. Some are conical in shape in the front, and I thought I heard you say bridal veil trees.
Yes.
Where, you mentioned Palm Beach, is that where they have some of these species? Already planted?
In regards to the bridal tree or the mast trees?
But,
Both?
no, what,
The conical tall ones.
the
I think.
conical tall
Yes,
ones.
so the mast trees,
Okay, those are mast trees.
yeah,
Okay.
these are mast trees.
Okay,
And yes, I've seen properties on Palm Beach Island where they have installed mast trees.
and what about the other,
The bridal veil trees, yes, yes.
yes, what?
They have been installed, Palm Beach, they've been installed up in Jupiter. There's a
Okay.
few real beautiful specimens that have been installed up in Jupiter.
These, you have mentioned repeatedly about slow growth. Would you say that these species that are non-native, are they invasive in nature?
No, we are not planting any tree or plant species that would be considered invasive at all. It's against
Well, that's-
our firm's ethos.
I have no other questions.
I would say just because they're slow growing, I mean, if those hardwood trees.
I just wanted to
Make sure it was,
clarify.
make sure it was, yes.
Yeah, that's good, that's good.
Comments, questions?
From me.
I guess we should have a motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve, the revised landscape, well, not revised, we'll just make a motion to approve the landscape and hardscape site plan.
Second?
Mr. Rubini?
Aye.
Mr. Kent?
Aye.
Mr. Roach?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much, quite an education.
Yeah.
I will need you to leave your display.
Okay.
I want to have your little presentation.
Rita, do you also want this thumb drive? Do you have other things on that thumb drive besides this application?
Yes. Can I?
Rita, would you be all right with just, I suspect we're gonna need your thumb drive.
Yeah.
Or that file on a separate thumb drive.
Okay. I'll transfer that right there and I'll leave it with you.
That's fine.
And you'll finish soon, right?
Yes, yes.
You want to be finished.
And would you also leave your card with that?
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, if I can proceed to, Mr. Weedsman, in time to
Yes,
stay.
yeah.
I'm gonna go to item 7. No, I'm going to item 8. Assignment from the town commission. Let me read from the minutes of the last town commission meeting. Mayor Morgan asked for commission approval to direct the ARPB to look at disincentives for second-story homes, which would encourage single-story home construction. Encourage a review of the FAR and setbacks, and any other sections dealing with these matters. And so that is an agenda item we're looking at. Let me read one thing from the design manual. It's a description, by the way, this proposal on the FAR and setback relates to 2 of the districts. And that would be the core and Sausalito. Thank you, I always mess that up. I'm going to read the description of the core district. It's categorized by 1-story and a few partial 2-story houses, which fit comfortably under the lots. The concern is that that particular description is changing. And the desire, given the small footprint of many of the lots in these 2 core districts, that the mayor has encouraged that we look at incentives or disincentives to maintain the 1-story or disincentives to discourage 2 stories, so we could maintain the character of these 2 districts. And the specific proposal made, let me start with the setbacks, or FAR, excuse me. Currently, the first 2,000 square feet of lot size is permitted FAR of 33%. The mayor suggested we consider going from the 33% on the first 20,000 to 30%. With regard to anything over 2,000 square feet of lot size.
20,000.
20,000.
Thank you. Let me restate that. Over 20,000 lot size, the FAR currently is 20%. Did that go to 19%? The second dimension of this is to change setbacks, where the front setback today is
30 feet, that add additional 5 feet to the front setback.
For two-story.
The two-story, yes, thank you. And with regard to the side setback, it's 30% of the lot width or 15 feet each side. Consider increasing the,
Oh, minimum 15, sorry, yeah.
consider the side backs to maybe 17 feet from 15 feet. And this is just a discussion item, we, the architectural review and planning board, could make no change, could add additional changes to what's proposed here. So it's really open for discussion. And I think I might, would you want to go first, or should I have Mr.?
Well, yeah, well, you haven't been here for a couple of meetings where we've had an architect in here who's, I think he did the designs for the McLuth, what is the new subdivision that was done at the south end of town?
Hidden Harbor.
Hidden
Estates.
Harbor, oh yeah, Hidden Harbor. Anyway, the architect for there, now the architect made a presentation up here on 2 houses for a property, this currently one property is going to be divided into 2 properties. You are, okay. And the, he has been very adamant about, he calls your designs, you follow the design manual perfectly. The second stories are always well set back from the first stories. I mean, you follow the design manual, in my opinion, to the letter. And your second floors are always set well back from the property lines, and you have the wings for the first floor with the central massing. I mean, everything right to the design manual. We've had 2 architects in here calling that wedding cake architecture, and being, including Mr. Marsh, who they've been very derogatory about this wedding cake architecture. And but if you look around the town, the entire town is wedding cake architecture. And frankly, I think is what keeps our town. We don't have neighbors with second stories right up to the setback, looking down on their neighbors. And conversely, we don't have neighbors looking up at 2-story buildings, looking down on them. Especially, and I'm not talking about, and we have parts of town, Ocean West, the ocean front, where we can build, where there are big lots that are 100,000 square feet, that can support a house that's end-to-end 2-story, but there's plenty of land to bucket the whole thing. So this sort of wedding cake architecture that architects have been so against when they've been in here, that we want to, that I think is the reason why we have what we have. And that's, but you really embraced what the manual proposed, would like to see. And but I guess your input would be terrific in that regard.
Well,
Bill, I guess.
Or else you can take the mic with you if you want to.
Bill, before you make some comments, I do want to highlight that 2 of my favorite homes in the core district are homes you built.
oh, thank you.
And one in a development that we all know, characterized George Stragas' house as a house he'd love to own himself. And both those houses, the Weiss house and the Dragas house, are beautiful 1-story homes. So
They were fortunate enough to be made 1-story because of one simple reason: they're on 2 lots. It's awfully hard to do a 1-story house on a 100-foot lot and have it with any outdoor space left over. I don't think you should discourage 2-story houses. I think you should encourage additional setbacks for the second floor. I think that makes sense. And people may criticize the wedding cake. I've never heard that phrase before, the wedding cake art. But it's strictly what Gulfstream's all about, right? I mean, we all, we have to encourage, you know, diversity among detailing in the way those houses are put together, what have you, so they don't all look the same. But from a planning standpoint, they work, because you don't have imposition of shadows and what have you in your neighbor's property.
And privacy.
And privacy issues. I do think that you could encourage, you know, a lot of times we don't want these big blocky looking houses, but you can encourage the facades to be broken somewhat like we've done here by requiring maybe a maximum size of a plane. Meaning a wall plane can only go up to a certain square footage, and then it has to have a break in it. So it's not box-like. So you get, a break here, what have you. You might have to get your planner to study that and come up with what the right formula would be.
What we do already have is called step backs in the design manual,
Yeah.
and we do have a minimum setback. We say that there have to be very few step backs, and they have to be major. In other words, as opposed to a few minor step backs, they have to be a major step back. I think it even maybe even says 5 feet or more. I have it in my little presentation.
But I don't even think you need to go 5 feet to get the facade to break up somewhat, so it's not a box-like. Because when you break it up a foot or two, the roof breaks and everything else breaks.
And everything else breaks with it, yeah.
With it.
No, I think you may.
I mean, I think it'd be a mistake to decrease the FAR, because the FAR is probably more restricted than any place else I can think of now. And I think it would hurt your property values, in my opinion, it'd be a disincentive to build new houses here. Because a lot of people won't come here because the houses, they can't build a big enough house. Well, that's fine. They can go to someplace else to do that. But you can't make it where it's too small. I think that's a mistake. I think the FAR should stay the same. I think you can increase your setbacks, or figure out some kind of incentive to, I don't know what the incentive would be. I mean, Delray Beach has incentives for different kinds of development, for additional setbacks. You get more FAR. I don't think your FAR is ever going to increase here. But I do think that the break of the walls so they're not boxes upstairs and what have you would be with a good, and the additional setbacks, I think you'd have it covered. But I don't think you should, I think you should always encourage that the style of the house will stay the same here.
Let me ask you this question. The setback with regard particularly to the sides, you could set back the whole building, or you could set back the second floor. Why are you opposed to setting back the entire building from the first floor?
Because the first floor doesn't have the impact the second floor has on it.
That's a good response.
It doesn't have the impact.
No, that's.
Something else I wanted to say. I think another thing you can do is you could decrease the percentage of area you could build on the second floor. Right now you're at 75%. You could propose decreasing that to 60%. These houses don't require to have that much of a second floor, really. With a 33% FAR, you can get most of your house on the first floor. You need your secondary bedrooms upstairs, for instance. You really don't need 75% of your square footage on the second floor. So you can say, well, let's decrease it. The second floor has to be 60% of the first floor instead of 75. That would help you.
Bill, the only thing I would say, that's an excellent suggestion, but the only thing is more the width of the second story, how far it comes out. And if we can push it in and get it to move back, in other words, have the second story square footage extend backwards instead of, because the thing is, it's almost, I mean, there's one house I saw a proposal for, it almost looks like, a western town, where they have all the one-story buildings, but then they just have that second story going up. I mean, not even second story, it's just a facade to make it look impressive. I mean,
Well, I don't think it is. I think you're right. I think increases, but if you're going to do the second floor setback, make it a substantial setback.
Setback, yes.
Don't go an additional 5 feet, because nothing looks more ridiculous to me than a house that's set back the second floor. Okay, here's the first floor, 5 feet back's the second floor. Well, that's a zoning. So that's a zoning response. It's not a creative response. So people just do that from a zoning.
Yeah, I think it has to be more like
I think it's more,
12 feet, 15 feet.
or another 10 or 15 feet additional from what's there.
Can I go through my presentation? Because I think it might sort of dovetail with exactly what you're saying.
May I ask one question prior to doing your presentation? I didn't know you were going to do one. May I do that?
Oh, please.
Are you possibly stating two things. That is, it is important to provide for or allow an architect to be creative in whatever we might
Right.
migrate to. And secondly, I almost got the impression from what you said that if you limit the size of the plane, or you control the size of the plane of a
Facade wall.
walls, that by doing that, and we do that in in the multifamily.
Yes,
We don't do it in the or in the, single family residential. If by doing that, if we had a plan to limit the size of those planes, facades, that in essence, all of this would take care, that would take care of the issue that we're really doing and still provide for taxable value and creativity.
I think so. I do. I think so. I think you can handle it by the plane size and by maybe limiting the size of the second floor away from the set. I think the 75% is too much for the second floor. I've never even approached that. You know, for me, it's closer to 50.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just make it, yeah, there's I need about 5 minutes.
Sure.
To make a proposal.
I have to run. Thanks so
Bill,
much.
thank you so much.
appreciate it, Mr. Widger.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, sorry, and this is throwing a lot at you, Stan, because this has been sort of an ongoing debate. But basically, I think we have two things here. The architects, I think we have to allow them to work within the styles that they're allowed within the design manual. In other words, give them freedom in that area. But what we have to do is constrict the building envelope, which we do. We already have setbacks for the first floor, and I think that works perfectly. It's the second story setbacks that, now this is where we have to make the decision, because I believe that in the existing language of the design manual, we already have what we need to limit the size of the second story. We have percentage setback, we have percentage of floor area, and then additionally, we have language in the design manual. Now, this is all taken out of the design manual, the sections. But I mean, clearly, you know, first of all we state that we're addressing community concerns regarding the mass of new construction and its impact. Okay, so that's taken care of. We have 7096, which specifies intent. Both new and proposed improvements to existing structures must represent or relate to their surroundings. So we do say that the houses, a proposed house has to relate to what's around it. And right now, we're very fortunate. We have a town where everything.
Maybe you can turn off the other mic?
Oh,
That may mess things up even more.
okay. I'll put this over here.
Do you have a phone on you?
No. So that's the thing. I believe that. Sorry, we're going back to this building form. We already say that new structures should relate harmoniously to the form and scale of the architecture in the vicinity. There's another tool that we have to limit the size of the second story of houses. This is very important. The preferred buildings with central massing. In other words, this putting the second story out toward in any one direction, it's not allowed according to the design manual. And that's where I think with the proposals that came before us for the houses along A1A, there was a lot that's being subdivided into two, and two-story houses, the second story extending all the way out to the side property lines came before us, and the design was rejected by the town commission. I think the central massing is very key, and the use of step backs. Then we have finally roof and eave heights, which specify this type of design emphasizes the horizontal dimension of the structure while minimizing the vertical dimension. I think that's another very important tool that we have to limit the second story, the massing of the second story. So I think we have a lot of language in the current design manual which allows us to limit the second story. And then lastly, building form, characteristics, describing the characteristics of the house, a central peak flanked by peaks over projecting wings. Now we don't say one story projecting wings, but that's what it means. In other words, projecting wings that are one story with the central, once again, the central massing. Two-story houses should pay particular attention to reducing the size of the second floor and applying articulation such as balcony setbacks, and other design techniques to avoid the box-like massive structures. And preferred single-story garages. We have a lot of language in here already. So I'm not sure how much we want to change what we already have. In response to the memo that went out, the possible changes to the Gulfstream Code, I do have some comments. First of all, I agree with Mr. Wietzma that where we're proposing further limiting the FAR, I don't think we have a problem with FAR. I don't think we have a problem with the size of the houses. I think the problem we have is where the massing occurs on the property. It's not the overall size of the house, it's where the massing occurs. So from that respect, I don't think that we have to change section 71. I think we can stick with what we already have. The proposal, I just wrote in there, recommend no changes to the FAR calculations. Section 7074, currently the proposal was that we increase the two-story setback. Let's see here. Currently, the front setback is 30 feet. The side is minimum of combined 30 feet of the lot width. So in a 100-foot lot, you have 30 feet, which is 15 feet on either side, 150 feet. Then you have to go back further than 15 feet on either side. That is perfect for a one-story section. And then the rear is as it is. I agree with, I'm not sure if I'm 100% that we need to go an additional 5 feet on the front setback, but going to 35 feet. Actually, when this town was built, all the houses that were built in the 60s, the front setback was 35 feet for a single-story house, or a two-story house. In other words, in the late 90s, it went from 35 feet to 25 feet. 25 feet was too close. The houses that are built, there are some houses that were built to that rule, and they are so close to the street, there's only room for driveway. There's no room to put in a lot of greenery. So then, a couple of years later, it was pushed back to 30 feet. So we started at 35 feet, moved up to 25 feet. That was much too close to the road, and we got it pushed back to 30 feet. And in response to 35 feet on some of the smaller lots is somewhat of a hardship if you build a single-story house, because it means that if you use all the FAR, there's no backyard. So but I agree for the second story, we could go to 35 feet, and it is a disincentive to build a two-story house. Okay, I think Mr. Wietzman had an excellent point on the next item. The proposal was consider increasing side setbacks perhaps to a minimum of 17 feet. That would only be 2 feet. That wouldn't do anything. As a matter of fact, in Mr. Wietzman, I agree with him completely. It would make to have this, you almost do get this wedding cake effect. What we have now, the second story setbacks on the houses that exist in Gulfstream, say one house, are more like 12 to 15 feet. I mean, there are wings, and then the middle part. There's not like a wall coming in, then just sort of a little wall going like this, and then the two-story part going up. They're significant, and I think Mr. Wietzman makes an excellent point that they are significant, and they keep, when you have 12 or 15 foot additional setback for the second story, that's what we have in the town. That is the character of the town, and I think that's what we have to go. So I think that I don't recommend increasing the side setbacks to 17 feet. I have three more. This is sort of the decision point, because do we need to have more in our code than we already have? In other words, I think that if we choose as a board to enforce the code as written, we can say, we need to have, when somebody comes before us with a proposal, that the second story has to be centrally massed, in other words, with wings out to the side bill, in other words, two one-story wings, and then the second story massing in the middle. And we can just tell the applicants that, we can come to that decision as a board when an applicant comes in and they have this two-story portion going all the way out to the setbacks. We just have to say to the project, they just say, no, you can't do it. You have to come back with a design where the massing is centrally located on the property, where you have one-story wings with the two-story part in the middle. I mean, that's not really defined per se. I mean, in other words, what I just said isn't in the design manual, but I believe the language of the design manual gives us the discretion to tell an applicant, look, your second story has to be significantly set back from the first story and significantly set back from the property lines. One thing I do feel very strongly about, however, I have three recommendations. The first is a decision. Do we actually put a limit on the setbacks for the second story? That's a question. My second recommendation is prompted by houses that are with lots that are on corner lots. Because the thing is that the front setback on houses is 30 feet currently for the two-story part. However, if you have a 100-foot lot, the applicant could interpret so if you have a 100-foot wide lot, and I have this actually a little drawing. If you have a 100-foot wide lot, the side setbacks are 15 feet. Now going over it. No, sorry, I only have. This is 100. This is actually my house, 150 foot wide. This is my house. This is the house across the street. So right now, we're saying you have to go back 30 feet to have a two-story section on the front. However, on the side, and this is a street, somebody could interpret the design manual as saying, well, you can go up, all you have to do is go in, the setback on the side is 20 feet, because that's what's in the book right now, that the side setback has to be 20 feet from a street. You can't go 15 feet, it has to be at least 20 feet. But they could go up 2 stories right here, 20 feet off the street. So it's actually, so in my opinion, we have to say that the side setback for a 2-story house is at least, in my opinion, 30 feet, and I would recommend that it's at least 35 feet that on a 2-story house.
On a corner.
On a corner. This is only for corner lots, but it's just, this would keep. I think there just has to be a rule that there can't be any second story within 30 or 35 feet of a roadway, because that's when you really have the impact. I mean, that's when we drive through the town. If we have a 2-story wall going up within 20 feet of a roadway, it's going to be completely out of character with the town. And there are no walls, 2-story sections, save one house that was recently built, where I think it's more like 50 feet that we have on a side, not a front, but on a side, it's more like 50 feet where where you have a second story, except for maybe one house that's on Palm Way, that small lot that's, as you go down Palm Way to the west, and it's on the corner. There's a corner lot. I think that might be the only house where there's a second story structure that's less than 30 feet off the street. But anyway, and then the third recommendation I have.
That's Wheatsman house, though.
Was that? That is Bill Wheatsman house, but he was working with them. I mean, he was so constrained there. I mean,
Yeah.
and it might. I mean, he was well within the setbacks, and I think. But I mean, that might be the only property where we're not talking like where the second story is more like 40 or 50 feet from the street. And then the last thing is eave height. Right now we let people, we have preferred range is up to 21 feet. Discouraged is up to 23 feet. I think that we have to limit in the core and in Place au Soleil. I think we should really limit the eve height to 21 feet, period. 23 feet on a 20, 30, 40, 50,000 square foot lot is just too high in the core area and in Place au Soleil. I think in the Ocean West district, along the ocean, I think that, you know, those lots are big enough. I mean, they're 100,000, 150,000 square foot lots. They can support a house with a eve that's, you know, 23 feet, maybe even 25 feet. You know, if you have, I mean, some of those lots are a couple of acres down in the McLuth subdivision. They're huge. But in these core areas with streets and houses very closely spaced together, 23 feet is completely excessive. And it's also not in keeping with the character either, because the houses that are here, the majority of the two-story houses, the eve heights are 21 feet or less. So I would suggest that for the core Place au Soleil, you know, 21 feet is pretty tall. And but I don't think we can let people go to 23 feet, even though the architects say, well, we can't sell houses that don't have a 10-foot ceiling on the second floor. That's just ridiculous, you know. And they can work it in, you know. So that's the so my first recommendation, which is
Let's go back to that after some discussion, if you don't mind. I think we.
Can I just show you what it is?
Oh, I thought we understood what you were.
Okay. Well, I mean, I
Right.
just threw
Go
it.
ahead.
I mean, right now the first story, the setbacks for the first story. I'm sorry, the setbacks for the first story portion of the house on a 100-foot wide lot is 30%. So you have to go 15 feet, 15 feet. On a bigger lot, you have 30% of 15. You have 45-foot setbacks, so you have to go back further. But so we have 30% for the one-story part. What would be an adequate setback and percentage for a second story? I just threw out, and this is a number that could be 45%, 50, 55%, but I just did a drawing here at 45%, which I don't think is enough of a side setback. This is on a 100-foot wide lot. You'd have, so a 100-foot wide lot, 45%, you'd have to have a 45-foot setback, so 23 and say 22. This would be the massing, the red line would be the massing area for the second story. I don't think that's enough. I just threw 45 out there and drew it. I honestly don't think it's enough. Here's the effect it would have on a 150-foot wide lot. It would, once again, I mean, it would get the second story about 34 feet back from the property line, but I think it has to even be more to be in keeping. I think it should be more like 50% to be more in keeping with the town. And it certainly, Mr. Wiesman has done, has built, you know, several projects, probably 8 two-story houses right in the Corn District, that this would not have impeded his being able to design the houses. But my question is, do we even need to have language where we limit the side setbacks, or do we use the existing language to enforce it? Sorry, all yours.
So let me try to frame the discussion. Mayor Morgan proposed language to create incentives to build one-story homes, or create disincentives to build two-story homes. So that was, I think, his intent and objective. And so while I hear what you're saying, it doesn't address his goal, which was to maintain the current character. And let me again read it.
Oh yes, I remember, yeah.
Well, but I do want to read it because I didn't read it properly the first time because I neglected to include a description of Malcolm's district. The Gulfstream Core District and Bosville are characterized by one-story and a few partial two-story houses, which fit comfortably in medium-sized lots. I think that, and I shouldn't put words in the mayor's mouth, because I wasn't there, but I think his intent was to try to create an environment where homes that are currently one-story would stay one-story. Is that fair? Is that?
No, no, that's, no, and I agree with you.
Exactly right.